Well, really, I mean, like from even the very beginning, the band has always been sort of a loose amalgam of people, so it's never quite, it's been something that I think has thematically existed beyond every individual player that was on it. It's kind of had a consistent voice throughout, but from the first record was one lineup, the second album was another lineup. Almost every single release has been a different lineup. So it hasn't been an extremely significant or noticeable difference to any of us in that process, because it's always just been kind of an ongoing thing from each point when we're all doing it. Like Greg and Cliff were the founders of the band and kind of like have a big part in the sound of everything, but I think like throughout it's been kind of like a constant evolution anyway as things go. So with the new record, it hasn't really felt that much like there was any sort of a main hurdle that we had to get over, or try to find some different way of approaching things. We've just kind of consistently done that.
For me, I do, obsess about it. I don't know that I obsess about one particular thing, but I always have to be playing music, or, lately I've been really getting really involved in photography and art, like visual art. And even when I was a kid, it was like that. I was always drawing or picking up an instrument and playing with it. And so, I don't know that it's like the art, especially, that chooses me, but I think that for me, and I think probably for a lot of the creative people I know, it's just this creative drive that needs to manifest itself somehow, whether it's music or otherwise. But I mean, I can't go very long at all without doing it. At the end of a tour, maybe I'll take several days and sort of not do anything, but then inevitably I have to be involved in something.
Yeah, I think that all people really have that capacity for creativity. Is sort of like part of how our brains function, but I think probably unfortunately for some people maybe they just never figure out that one kind of thing that is a really good voice for them, and then some people I think maybe at a certain point you get really drawn into one sort of medium to do something that actually sort of works out. Music for me has always just been like a central part of my life. So I've always done it since I was very little, and it's been kind of a key aspect. And I think probably everyone that is in this band feels the same way, that it's just an essential component of life rather than something else. I think if I didn't play music, I don't think I'd be very happy at all.
I think it has changed over the years in that when we first met with the original lineup, I knew Jeff, who he and I both played bass, and he played guitar and I played pedal steel. So I knew him, and I didn't really know any of the other guys. I just met him, and so there was sort of that period of spending a lot of time with them, just because we were getting to know each other. And now over the years, and even with Emma, I mean, she's been in the band for a while now. It's developed into just an old, very sort of comfortable friendship. So there may be times when I won't see anyone for a month, but I see that more as a sign of true friendship, And there are times where we do hang out. We obviously hang out all the time when we're on tour, and this year, for example, we've been touring quite a bit. But it was interesting when we were looking for a new guitar player. We tried out a number of people, and we tried out people that we didn't know, and a couple of us had met Emma before, so she wasn't a friend at that time, but she was a friend of a friend. She really came from this sort of circle of people that we know, and that, I don't know that we ever talked about it, but it became pretty obvious to me that it was really important that someone had a personality that could work well. So I don't think that we could play and not be friends. we make them ourselves. There was a short period of time where we did have other people do productions for us, and it was sort of during a state of flux for us where we had a lineup change, and so we were trying to figure out what the best way to do that part of it was. But now it's really Dave and I that do it. Dave does the majority of the work. I'll do some filming, and he also does some filming and does all the editing. So whether he uses footage that I've come up with or he's come up with or some stock footage. So really Dave does most of it. And I think that it's very open to him doing what he wants. Yeah, there's never a point. We may have some ideas, but they're always suggestions, so we don't come up with a script or anything that we hand to Dave. And I think it's good in that way. It's like an instrument in the band in a lot of ways, where it's sort of, we just trust that what he comes up with will be good and will work with the aesthetic. And for us, it really is an ongoing thing. It's something that we work on quite a bit to sort of refine and come up with I don't know, I guess, like, just like our music, it'll evolve over time, and we hope just get better and better. I think it's really important to our music. We've talked about not having visuals. It can be kind of a pain logistically having to worry about, you know, and it's a lot of time. I mean, it's one thing to write a record, but then it's almost like writing a whole second record, a huge amount of time. But it's always worth it, and I really feel, I think we all feel that it really becomes a critical component of our live show. And to relate back to what Dave said and the difference between listening to a record now on your computer maybe and going to a show is that we really want to put something out there that people can experience and really separate from listening to a record. And yeah, that's a huge part of it. When we started the band, we had written music before we ever came up with our name, and the band originally was called Sparowes, and then we added Red to it, and that was only because of the emotional quality that the word red has.
Yeah, if I asked you, for example, if I had this question, so what's red about your music?
What's red about our music? Well, I feel like red is in writing the music for Red Sparowes, it comes from a very emotional place. I don't mean that, I mean, from all of us, I don't mean that in the dramatic way it sounds, but it's emotionally driven music, as I'm sure all music is, but I think in a big way, because there aren't lyrics, we really try to capture whatever it is that we're trying to put out there, so much so that when we're writing, lots of times we won't talk about like keys, chord changes as much as we'll talk about, okay, what emotion are we trying to convey? And I think red is a very, it's like a passionate color, and it has a lot of energy, and it's got a certain amount of violence in it, and I think that our music, while it doesn't always have that feeling, I think there's an aesthetic to Red Sparowes that is dark and at times violent, and not energetic in terms of like the way that like pop punk might be energetic, but energetic in the way that it can move through emotions. And I think that, I mean, that was a big part of it. Like Blue would be very different. Blue Sparowes to me would be a completely different band. It would probably be quiet, very quiet and spacey sound. But that said, more and more we're trying to push the boundaries of what it is that we express with our music. And so if you were to ask me about a particular song, the colors may vary. And it's been a long time since we came up with Red Sparowes.
Well, staying alive is important to me. And creating things, I think, is sort of it seems to be a part of everything that I've felt driven to do in my life. Aside from every other aspect, it's kind of like trying to accomplish as much as possible.
I read somewhere once that someone wrote that they were glad that they didn't get the girl that they wanted, because when writing music, they could write about the heartbreak and the pain, and they thought their music was better because of that. And I think there's something bigger there in that, like, I never ever feel satisfied, and it drives me crazy. Like, the day after we're done with our record, I feel like, okay, it's time to write a better record. And if I take a photograph, and I take it home and I work with it, I'm always thinking about what could have been better. And so it's never there. I never feel satisfied ever, and that is extremely frustrating. But I also think it's really important, because I can't imagine that feeling satisfied would be helpful in any way to me or anybody else. And it really ties back into what Dave said about being creative. And so I think I just think it's really important to take dissatisfaction in any way and to work with it and allow it to become something meaningful, and not like be crushed underneath the weight of that and not do anything. And I see a lot of people making the choice either way.